May 12, 2017. Just a regular Friday, right? Until. In an absolute instant, an unprecedented wave of digital chaos literally brought the world to a standstill. Today, in this explainer, we aren't just recounting what happened. We're going to dig deep into the digital forensics and the massive, multi-jurisdictional investigation that unmasked the shadowy architects behind it all. You know what the real tragedy of this whole disaster is? It could have been totally prevented. There was this fatal 59-day window. Look, on March 14th, 2017, Microsoft pushed out a critical patch for a flaw in their server message block protocol, SMB-v1. Exactly 31 days later, this mysterious group, calling themselves the Shadow Brokers, leaked a highly classified cache of cyber weapons straight from the NSA. And then on day 59, the WannaCry outbreak actually hits, meaning every single organization that got completely wrecked on May 12th, they had nearly 2 months to apply that fix. This wasn't some unknown zero-day vulnerability catching everyone off guard. Over 300,000 computers across 150 countries were infected almost immediately. The damage was totally indiscriminate and honestly catastrophic. It paralyzed critical infrastructure. The most famous example is the UK's National Health Service. Thousands of medical appointments were just cancelled. ERs were forced to close. They literally had MRI scanners and blood storage refrigerators taken completely offline. All told, the estimated global damages soared to roughly $4 billion. $4 billion. And here's the thing, these attackers didn't just sit down and write a clever script. They armed themselves with a weaponized leak. Brad Smith over at Microsoft hit the nail on the head when he compared this stolen NSA exploit to the US military having some of its Tomahawk missiles stolen. That is the sheer scale we're talking about. These operatives armed themselves with a highly classified nation-state-level cyber weapon. Section 1. The exploit. Eternal Blue and the Worm. Let's break down the exact mechanism that fueled this unstoppable infection. So, WannaCry wasn't your standard run-of-the-mill phishing attack. It was a crypto worm. And the crucial point here is that unlike traditional ransomware, where someone has to accidentally click a sketchy link or download a bad attachment, a crypto worm requires absolutely zero human interaction. None. Once it breaches a network, it spreads relentlessly on its own, basically using the infected machine to ruthlessly hunt down its next victim. It works like a brutal automated machine. First, the malware scans TCP port 445 for vulnerable subnets, firing off connection attempts at terrifying speeds. Second, it uses that stolen NSA exploit, codenamed Eternal Blue, to smash through the system's defenses. Third, it injects a backdoor known as double pulsar deep into the machine's core operating system, the kernel, directly manipulating memory. And finally, it executes the payload, locking down every single file. This happened so fast that a single infected laptop brought into an office could compromise a whole network in minutes. And honestly, it only stopped because Marcus Hutchins, a security researcher, happened to find and register a hidden kill switch domain baked into the code, which incredibly halted that original build. Section 2. The financial paradox. Because this is where the investigation uncovers a truly bizarre contradiction between the massive scale of the destruction and the actual financial payoff. The discrepancy here is just staggering. While global damages skyrocketed to an estimated $4 billion, with NHS England alone absorbing roughly £92 million in emergency costs, the attackers collected exactly 52.2 Bitcoin. At the time, that was worth about $143,000. So despite causing billions in destruction, the extortion attempt itself was a colossal failure. Why? Well, they hard-coded 3 Bitcoin wallets into the malware with absolutely no per-victim identifier. They literally had no automated way to tell which machine a payment came from, meaning even if a victim paid, they were highly unlikely to actually get their files decrypted. Section 3. Unmasking the Lazarus Group. Okay, let's dive into the digital forensics that allowed global investigators to unmask the real architects behind all this chaos. Investigators started connecting the dots, and the digital forensics led straight to the North Korean Reconnaissance General Bureau, their military intelligence agency. In the cybersecurity world, you probably know this state-sponsored unit under names like the Lazarus Group and APT-38. The evidence shows they used front companies like Chosun Expo Joint Venture. But the real smoking gun, they recycled code. Earlier versions of WannaCry shared really specific functional similarities with malware previously developed by those same North Korean hackers, specifically a bug known as Brambule. The investigation ultimately zeroed in on 3 highly specialized military hackers operating this global crime syndicate for the regime. We've got Park Chin-hyuk, a programmer tied not just to WannaCry, but the 2014 Sony Pictures hack and that massive $81 million Bangladesh heist. Then there's John Chang-hyuk, who focused on Swift network heists and ATM cash-outs, and Kim Il, specializing in malicious cryptocurrency applications and exchange hacks. Make no mistake, this wasn't some rogue group of kids in a basement. This was a highly organized state-backed cyber military unit. But here's the catch. Even elite military hackers make operational security mistakes, and one reused IP address unraveled their entire digital cover. Investigators traced a collector email address used by that older Bramble malware. They discovered a login to that email originated from a specific North Korean IP address. And guess what? That exact same IP address was used to access the personal and front company accounts of Park Chin-hyuk. The digital fingerprint was absolutely undeniable. Section 4. Laundering the stolen billions. Realizing that a broken ransomware tool like WannaCry caused way too much noise for too little profit, the group quickly pivoted. Their new strategy became incredibly systematic and totally relentless. Target crypto exchanges all over the world. December 2017, they hit a Slovenian exchange for $75 million. In 2018, an Indonesian exchange for nearly $25 million. And in a massive 2021 attack on Liquid.com, they made off with over $91 million in digital assets in just a matter of hours. The end goal here? Amass vast funds to evade severe international sanctions against North Korea. But stealing the crypto is actually only half the battle, right? Cashing it out without getting caught, that's the real challenge. To hide these massive thefts, they employed super advanced laundering techniques, like chain hopping. This is basically designed to deliberately break the digital trail on the blockchain by rapidly trading and swapping different types of cryptocurrency. What they built was an incredibly complex, multi-stage money laundering machine. Take the Liquid.com hack. They took 67 different stolen tokens and swapped them for Ether using decentralized exchanges. Next, they funneled that Ether through cryptocurrency mixers to completely scramble the origin trail. Then they swapped the mixed Ether for Bitcoin, and finally consolidated that Bitcoin into brand new wallets to cash out for fiat currency at Asian exchanges. They even utilized automated peel chains, which means stripping small amounts of crypto off a larger sum across hundreds of microtransactions, all to deliberately confuse investigators. But they couldn't operate this massive machine entirely from Pyongyang. They relied on a vast global network of professional money launderers. Investigators charged individuals like Galeb Al-Mari, a Canadian U.S. citizen who ran ATM cash-out crews. They identified China-based operators, known as Tian and Li, who managed the peel chains. These brokers routinely utilized doctored know-your-customer identity documents to bypass security checks on major exchanges, literally turning stolen code into cold, hard cash for the regime. Section 5. The ongoing global threat. Thanks to a huge collaborative effort from global law enforcement and some seriously advanced blockchain analysis tools, authorities have been able to freeze and seize millions in stolen funds. But the Lazarus Group adapts incredibly fast, making this a high-stakes, ongoing game of cat and mouse between international investigators and state-sponsored threat actors. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. WannaCry utilized a known, patched vulnerability, and it still brought the world to its knees. If a single unpatched flaw can cause over $4 billion in global damage, what happens when these heavily funded, highly organized nation-state hackers leverage the next undiscovered zero-day? As these syndicates grow even more sophisticated, is our global digital infrastructure truly prepared for the next inevitable breach?